Alright, what's up mga kachimek? So, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, whatever time you are watching this video. So, we're still on our final topic in organic chemistry, the functional groups under carbon compounds under organic chemistry. So, for this particular session, we are just to, again, redefine functional groups, not just for recall, retention, for repetition, to master the lesson, and then we'll identify one of the 5 functional groups that we are to discuss for this semester, for this course, the carboxylic acid, and use the rules in naming them and by applying it to some carbon compounds. So are you ready mga kachimek? Let's go! Alright, so as I was saying, now we're done with hydrocarbons, the special property of carbon, the functional groups, and last time we discussed about alcohol and aldehyde. Now, if you failed to watch that video, especially if you failed to attend our synchronous session, then you can go back to the 2 videos in my channel. You can look for them, functional groups parenthesis alcohol, and then functional groups parenthesis aldehyde. On our Google Classroom, you can also check the practice problems that we had and the challenge problems. Now, what if there's a combination of alcohol and aldehyde in the same compound? I've taught it in our synchronous class. So for this particular session, we are to discuss the carboxylic acid, the third functional group on our list. So again, functional groups are just other elements, even the hydrocarbons are called functional groups, but I decided to separate them so that you can have a glance on what's the difference between a hydrocarbon and a hydrocarbon with these attachments. So these are still our basic carbon compounds with a lot of hydrogens, but with additional elements such as oxygen, nitrogen, OH, etc. So, for this third functional group, the carboxylic acid, ano kaya ang idadagdag natin? Or how does it look like? And what are the rules in naming them? So, let's first define what a carboxylic acid is. Maybe you have heard of it on your medicines, on your vitamins, or somewhere. Maybe you're familiar with the term carboxylic acid. So, in chemistry, it's any of a class of organic compound which a carbon atom is bonded to an oxygen by a double bond. So a carbon double bonded to an oxygen. So this is how it looks like. A carbon double bonded to an oxygen and to a hydroxyl group. So ganito yung magiging itsura niya. So usually we simply write it as an alkane or an alkyne, the rest of our hydrocarbon, with a carbon double bonded to oxygen and to OH. So RCOOH will be the general formula for our carboxylic acid. Single bond KOH, double bond KO. And it's usually on the terminal. Same with aldehyde, nasa terminal carbon siya. So it's on the edge, either on the left or right. It doesn't matter because sabi ko nga, these objects are 3-dimensional. These things are irreversible rather. These things can rotate, can be vertical, horizontal, slant, etc. And how do we name them? That's the important thing. Again, we are guided by the rules and laws by the International Union for Pure and Applied Chemistry, or chemists. So let's have an example first. So I'll go from items 1, 2, and 3. But before I answer it, you may pause the video to try without any idea how to name them. But of course, it would be very difficult, because you have no background. But just try, in case you know the first steps and you just don't know how to name it. Right. In case you're finding difficulty, so let me name first the first one, and then you'll try the second. So that's what a teacher would usually do. Present an example, a deductive one, then give another example and another one until we come up with a general rule. So here, you can see that uh, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 carbons and a double bond to oxygen and a single bond to OH. No, if you can recall, no, hopefully you've watched the video, so I'm assuming you've watched my earlier videos on alcohol and aldehyde. If it's just O, so let me write it for quick reference, and a bond to an H, this is an aldehyde. No, if you can recall, an aldehyde, and then if it's just an OH, it's an alcohol. Now, I decided to rearrange them so that it could be easy to remember them. Now, we have the alcohol first, and then the dehydrated alcohol, the aldehyde, and then eventually, now we have the combination, seemingly a combination of an aldehyde and an alcohol, and that's the group of our carboxylic acids. So hopefully mas madaling matandaan because of the rearrangement. So OH is for alcohol, oxygen is for aldehyde, no, because we remove the H there, no, the dehydrated hydrogen, dehydrated alcohol rather. So naging O na lang siya. And when you combine them all together, see, an aldehyde seemingly, pero sa terminal there's an alcohol, it becomes an acid, no, a carboxylic acid in particular. Now, how do we name them? So again, as I've usually said over and over again, umay na siguro kayo, if you know the rule in naming alkane and such, no, and the rest of it, this will come in handy. You'll know that the first step, no, basically will be counting the carbon, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and you yourself would ask, saan ako unang magka-count? So before that, common mistake, usually they still include, some students still include this point over here. So again, be careful, that's a line pointing to OH, meaning there's no carbon here. The carbon ends here. So yan, so just be very careful. So since I have 1, 2, 3, 4, that's bute. No, I know that the prefixes doesn't change, so that's bute for this 4 carbons. Now, where do I start counting? Left to right or right to left? And you'll know that there's a functional group here. Alcohol and aldehyde are prioritized, so maybe carboxylic acid should be prioritized too. And yes, no, that's correct. We make our OOH, no, the carboxylic acid, a priority, or it is connected always to a carbon 1. So that would be, the start of our counting. So happy Mother's Day nga pala sa mga mama nyo. And hopefully, yan, they enjoyed the weekend. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So as I was saying, so eto na. So this is the only difference. If it's just an alcohol, we use all. Diba? Sana all. If it's an aldehyde, this is an aldehyde, we use al for aldehyde. For alcohol, we use all. For aldehyde, we use al. Diba? Ethanol, no, methanol, propanol. Sa aldehyde naman, we have pentanal, hexanal, heptanal. Now, how about for carboxylic acids? Now, we use the prefix, so take note of this, OIC, no, officer in charge. So, this becomes butanoic acid. No? So, we drop the E and we add OIC. Diba? Supposedly, if this is just a hydrocarbon, this will become a butane. No? But since there's an O and an OH, it's a carboxylic acid. No? It's a functional group under carboxylic acid. It becomes butanoic. No? Butanoic acid. So the name would be butanoic acid. So we add acid for carboxylic acids. Alright? So hopefully that's clear. Now for the second item, it's not a skeletal one, but it's a very similar example to this one. So I want you to pause the video and try it for yourself. What would be the name for this particular carboxylic acid? Sige, if you pause the video and tried, thank you. No, if not, it's okay. No, maybe you're still finding difficulty in answering this. So very similar to what we did. First, count the number of carbons. So we have 1, 2, 3. Again, this is just like 1, 2, 3. Tapos may double bond O and then may OH. No. we just expanded the structure. So, sorry for the image. So, parang ganyan siya. And, yan, ginawa lang natin tong expanded in nature, or condensed in nature, not a skeletal one. So, we have 1, 2, 3 carbon, and then a carboxylic group. So, we count here 1, 2, 3, and that's pag 3 propane, no? But since it's a carboxylic acid, becomes, instead of propane, we drop the E, it becomes oik. No? Pagbaboy, oik. Propanoic acid. Right, you're getting it. Very good. Now, here's a challenge. Now, if you've attended our synchronous session, I think this will be easy. Now, how do we name a carboxylic acid with an alcohol attached to it, or a hydroxyl attached to it? You may pause the video and try to name it. And yes, if you've tried and you've paused and you've tried, no, congratulations. Either you get it right or wrong, it doesn't matter as long as you're trying. No, it is by trying that we learn. We learn by making mistake, or we learn by getting the correct answer. So always try. So no one is watching you. So again, ikaw ang driver ng buhay mo, 'di ba? If you want to learn, then try. Pero kung you're learning just by watching, it's fine. It's fine too. So here, first count the number of carbon atom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, common mistake. Minsan nag-extend pa until dito. That's the end of my longest carbon chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll know that spent. No. And I'll know that it's a carboxylic acid. So it becomes a pentanoic acid. So pentanoic acid. Alright. So that's pentanoic space acid. And then here I have, so where should I start counting? So it's just the same. I'll make my carboxylic acid carbon attachment my number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, and 5. No, and if you remember, if it's an aldehyde, we call this hydroxy attachment. A hydroxyl attachment where we drop the L, so it becomes a hydroxy. And it's very, very the same. It's the same with carboxylic acid. The OH becomes a substituent, no, an attachment, no, a branch from our main chain. So we just locate the position, no, that 3 is our locant. So 3, and then that's a hydroxy. So it becomes 3-hydroxy. Again, without L, no, we drop the L. So it becomes 3-hydroxy pentanoic acid. So in case that an alcohol is present within carboxyl acid. So hopefully you're still following. Thank you if you're pausing the video and participating in between. Maraming salamat. The last 2 examples. How about we have an alkane, a cyclic alkane, no? A cyclic hydrocarbon in particular. So you may pause the video and try to name it. But since this is a tricky one, so I'm assuming you did not pause the video. So how do we name it? Again, we count the video. We count the carbon. So we start by counting where this is my carboxylic acid attachment. The formula is COOH. It's attached to what do you call that? A cyclic hydrocarbon. So 1. So it doesn't matter kung saan ako magsimula or mag-continue, unless otherwise, halimbawa may methyl dito, of course I should go down, no, kasi the substituent will be prioritized, or will make sure that the number would be least as possible, no. Sana nakaka-follow without me even drawing. Halimbawa may methyl dito, pwedeng dito. Since wala, pwede naman pataas, no? As long as the number 1 starts where my carboxylic acid is. Alright, so we have 5. Yan. So that's cyclohexane. So madali lang ito kasi we just name the alkane attachment cyclohexane. Now if it's an aldehyde, we call it cyclohexane carbaldehyde. No, if you can recall on our previous examples. But here, since it's a carboxylic acid, we simply name it cyclohexane carboxylic acid. Diba ang dali? Just the name of your functional group. A cyclohexane carboxylic acid. So that would be the UPAC name of this structure. And finally, final example, what if I have two? So these are just the basic situations. Pwedeng may attachments, pwedeng wala. And again, I know that you'll know how to name them already with a lot of examples in a hydrocarbon and other functional groups. So paano pag may doble? Again, it's just on the terminal. So the chance will always be just two. 2 carboxylic acid. And by that, you'll get to know that this should be named. So 1, 2, 3, 4 carbon. So butanoic, butanoic dapat siya, pero may dalawa, so it becomes butadioic, nasa eraser, so lutang, butadioic acid. It becomes butadioic acid. So this is, if I recall it correctly, butadioic acid or butane dioic acid. So this is a challenge. I leave you again. Comment what's the correct one, butane dioic or butadioic acid. So should we drop the N and make it butadioic acid, or should we maintain the correct the alkyl name or the alkane name of butane, and we just add di to our oic acid? So dioic acid. So alin dito yung tama sa dalawa? So question, sir, should I place number like 1 cyclohexane or dito naman 1, 4? No, because these are on the terminal, so it's intended that they should be the position is at the first and the last in case there's two. In case there's only one, it's assumed that it's on the first. Alright? So these are the few examples on how to name carboxylic acid. So again, very, very simple. So for your task, name this 3 and write it on the private comment section. So 1, 2, 3. How do we name with a methyl this condensed structure, and then with 2 OH attached to it? Alright? So, yan. So you can always go back. I'll upload the PowerPoint. So, to generalize what we have learned, so here's the first rule. The longest continuous chain is the COOH. COOH is prioritized. So we make the carbon where our oxygen and hydroxyl group is attached, our first carbon or our carbon 1. We replace E by oic acid. Kapag added siya sa ring or a cyclic structure, we just add carboxylic acid like cyclohexane carboxylic acid, cyclopentane carboxylic acid. And then kapag may OH, we use it as a hydroxyl substituent, but again we drop the L. So we just call them hydroxy. So 4-hydroxy pentanoic acid or 5-hydroxy decanoic acid. So ito pala, nandito na naman sa rule, so babawiin ko na naman yung challenge ko. So for dicarboxylic acid, the location numbers for both carboxyl groups are omitted because again, they are at the end of the parent chain. The ending is dioic acid at the end of the parent chain. So as hindi siya indicated dito, so still comment if it's butane dioic acid, just to check if you're watching, para may interaction naman despite being an asynchronous video, or butadioic acid. So dito sa example natin, alin dito yung tama, butadioic acid or butane dioic acid? So those are the rules in naming carboxylic acid. Again, very simple, very similar. We just have some unique changes, oic acid na instead of nol or ol and al. So for carboxylic, it's oic. Oic. Charot. So, how are these functional groups important? So, to give some, these are what we use. Usually, we use aspirin. For some medication, for dye, for industrial uses, benzoic acid, and the most common, of course, is an acetic acid. The one carbon chain, usually we call it methanoic acid, 'di ba? Kapag isang carbon lang, hindi na natin nilagay sa table because it's obvious. Ethanoic, propanoic, butanoic. But the common name for your functional group is your acetic acid. Now, one carbon with OOH. So, this is a methanoic acid. But the common name is an acetic acid, and it is usually found in vinegars. Again, these are not random things. These are things that we use every day. Hopefully, as we proceed further with the last two functional groups, and as you continue learning, be it in chemistry, physics, or other subjects, always look for something that could make you appreciate what you are learning. Make use of what you learn, appreciate them, because that's the purpose of education. Not to gain grades, not to be popular, not to be at the top, but to learn, to be a lifelong learner, to be able to apply what you learned in your daily life. So it's just a matter of parang streetwise rather than being a school genius. So that's it. Sorry sa mga patara-tara. Thank you and see you on the next two videos. Peace out.